Our founder, Baron Philippe de Rothschild, had a saying, "Making a great wine is easy. It's just the first 100 years that are difficult." In 2030, Opus One will be halfway through our first 100 years, the journey expressed by our founder. In crafting our 2030 vision, we needed to make sure it included the thoughts and feelings of all our employees. We undertook an iterative process of workshops and follow-up meetings with our entire staff and management team. This is the story of our process.
It began in 2013 as an ambitious program to engage the employee experience and bring trust, collaboration, and communication to the forefront. After receiving the award, we saw that there was great opportunity to do more. Today at Opus One, we recognize specific pillars that will enable us to face the challenges over the next 10 years, including increasing employee diversity throughout the organization, building leaders through mentorship programs, breaking down silos to create a more cohesive and collaborative work environment, and renewed focus on employee engagement and employee development.
Trabajar en Opus One es algo que me ha cambiado mi vida desde que yo llegué aquí. Me ha gustado mucho trabajar aquí. Mi trabajo con mis compañeros y la gente que trabajamos en Opus One es algo muy increíble porque cada vez que llega cada persona da el saludo y nosotros muy contentos. Eso es trabajar en Opus One y ojalá me gustaría trabajar más años, durar muchos años aquí en Opus One.
Angela, would you like a glass of 2016 Opus One?
Please, thank you.
I think this vintage is going to actually replace or supplant the 2010 as my favorite.
Those are some strong words, Michael.
I know. Sorry about the loose milliliter there. But you know what I love about this whole process about the 2030 vision is that it's like a microcosm of Opus One, because you have the 5 pillars of the vision, and you've got global responsibility, which we're going to talk about. You've got great place to work, dare to lead culture, being Opus One being among the most respected wines in the world, and that together we will go further. But it's also like a plant, because you think of pillars as being, set, but it's really like these pillars are like plants, because the roots extend out and they intertwine, and you can't be globally responsible unless you're enacting the other 4 pillars. So it's really a reflection of the collaboration and togetherness that we have at Opus.
And speaking of reflection, I would like to remind you of the vision statement. So before we collaborated for the 2030 vision, if you can remember, the vision statement for Opus One was to make a classic wine from the 5 Bordeaux grape varieties, to share it with your family and friends, and to be a steward of the land, which a steward really means to leave the land in better shape than you came about to it.
That's perfect, a perfect lead-in, because sustainability to me it's like a constant. If you sustain something, you're keeping it at the same level. That's what I love about the word stewardship that you just mentioned, because we talk about recycling, and what are some examples we have of recycling here?
So recycling is hard to teach, but we have gotten through it. The dirty bottles cannot be mixed with clean bottles in the recycling. We have to recycle plastic, and we also compost as well. And we really like to regenerate as well. And we just switched to MCE Deep Green at Opus One, which means we use 100% sustainable energy resources from solar and wind power from California.
And we also renew things. When we retrain a vine, when we have a vine that is affected by eutypa, this fungus that travels down through the vine to get to actually invade it and kill it, if we can catch it before it gets below a certain point, if we can have a bud push, we can actually retrain that vine. So we're actually renewing the vine. We're not replanting the vineyard with new plants. We're actually just taking advantage of an existing root system, and we don't lose any crop that year going from one to the other. Composting is renewing and regenerating as well, because we're taking the canes and the vines and we're chipping them and we're composting them, and they are giving back to the cycle of life. They're participating in the cycle of life. Biochar, when we stop the burning of wood to charcoal, biochar, which are tokalan truffles, those tokalan truffles are mixed with the compost and put in the vineyard right next to the vines. And like a real truffle that has a symbiotic relationship with an oak tree, the biochar allows the vine, facilitates the uptake of water and nutrients to the vine. It just doesn't get anything back from the vine.
So yeah, it's a cycle of life, and you're reusing everything that the vine is giving to us. We also will be coming out with a pilot program for the hospitality team to reuse the bottles that they pour in the tasting room. So we'll be able to reuse the glass and diminish the carbon footprint that we output.
But also we have to think about sustaining our workforce, helping people get further in their lives, not sustain their job and you get a little bit of a wage increase every year, but also by educating them and cultivating leaders. This takes us to a whole nother level, so that we're actually stewards of not only the vineyard, not only the winery, but of the people who work here. And if you think about a grapevine being a symbol of the winery, where you have great people who are like that molecule of water traveling through the plant to get to a leaf to evaporate, to cool the leaf, and at the same time generate energy to pull other molecules of water and nutrients up through the vine. What's the parallel with people? When you have somebody really great that comes to the winery, comes in through the root system, develops, and is getting close to the petiole to get to a leaf, push a lateral, give them another job, give them more responsibilities. And then if they get to a leaf, close to a leaf there, another lateral if possible. And the parallel is when they will get to a leaf, because they will go off somewhere else. But the energy that they create is people saying, where did they come from? And want to come here. And so they want to get into the root system and be a part of Opus One. So, and I think the 2030 vision, as we move forward and achieve our goals and realize our vision, is going to be a great thing.
We opened our offices in Bordeaux in 2013, which makes us nearly halfway to 2030. Throughout those years, we have been collecting data from our partners, the négociants, analyzing our distribution and working closely with our team in the field. All this work allowed us to have Opus One and Overture distributed in more than 90 countries today through more than 900 distributors in the world. Opus One and Overture definitely are amongst the best wines in the world. This is a good starting point, but we will keep on refining and fine-tuning our distribution, diversifying it with a constant focus on quality.
Opus One was originally conceived as one of the first growths of Napa, and was one of the first Californian wines to be widely distributed outside of the US. Looking forward to 2030, we aim to continue on that success. To paraphrase Sir Isaac Newton, we stand on the shoulders of two giants of the wine world in Baron Philip de Rothschild and Robert Mondavi, and thanks to the foundations that they laid in place, we now have an international team around the world, with representation in Hong Kong, Shanghai, Tokyo, and Europe.
This presence in the field allows us to have a better understanding of international markets and connect with the key importers and collectors. We are the dots joining between the winery and the end consumer. Our 2030 vision is to have Opus One present in the best and finest restaurants, in the shelves of the best wine shops, and in the cellars of the best collectors.
We're always pleased to see new markets develop, and in the last few years we've seen the emergence of China as a power in the wine world. However, it is important that we don't lose attention of our existing traditional markets, such as Japan and Europe. Like the label on our bottle, we need to look both forwards and backwards at the same time.
Another key element of our 2030 vision is sharing Opus One moments with our friends. We have already been organizing exceptional experiences such as dining at the Château de Versailles or hosting private members of clubs or importers in our offices in Bordeaux. This is a good starting point, but today customers for luxury products have many offers in front of them. So we will keep on organizing exceptional experiences, going further than what we did before, sometimes with luxury partners. And we will hopefully create a lot of new Opus One ambassadors.
Over the past few months, we've been forced to pivot slightly to move into a more virtual world. And this has enabled our team around the world to connect with consumers through virtual tastings, using tools such as Zoom and Instagram.
In our 2030 vision, we'll be known for our partnerships and collaboration. We will continue to question the norms with how we interact with our valued vendors and partners in the trade. With thoughtful intention, we will redefine our level of service. Together, we go further.
The concept of collaboration came up a lot as we talked about moving into 2030. And we really believe that collaboration is key to being successful in these goals, whether it's our vendors or our wholesale partners, even interdepartmentally here at the winery. Working together is really the key to helping us achieve these lofty ideas that we have for 2030. And something that we put together was this idea of Together We Go Far, which actually ended up evolving into Together We Go Further. It really is not this destination that we want to reach. It is a practice that we want to embody. It is something that we will be working on constantly as we move forward with these goals. This idea of collaboration really allows for creativity and innovation in how we move forward into 2030. Another important concept that we kept coming back to was this idea of value. The question of what value are we adding to people's lives, right? We live in this world where the market is just totally oversaturated and we're being hit in every direction with advertisements and brands and companies and, buy this, use it, buy it again. And it's really much more compelling to us to ask this question of how do we add value to people's lives, whether that's our employees or our partners or our consumers. This concept of what sets us apart and what makes Opus One truly unique and special is this concept of value. And so we kept coming back to the answer being emotional connection with our consumers and those that are drinking our wine. And wine has this really unique, beautiful ability to be able to have more value just innately in it because of how it's made, especially here at Opus One. Our goal is to make a wine of absolute quality that tells the story of time and place. And so whether you're drinking this wine here at the winery and experiencing our estate here in Oakville and sharing time with us, or you're at a restaurant, or you are purchasing the wine for a gift or a special occasion, it is something that, holds deeper meaning than just drinking a beverage. It is really telling a story and allowing us to connect with family and friends over a meal at the table, allowing us to celebrate something and really honoring what our founders set out to do.
So at the end of day one, each department went back and examined each of the segments that had been created. Great place to work, sustainability, #1 wines, partnerships, and then any other topics that would come up. After a week, each of the teams came together again to re-examine these topics. And ultimately what happened was an explosion of ideas. I call it sort of a supernova. Topics flying, words coming through, concepts examined, and ultimately ending up in much more thinking and idea for the future. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a collection of words, ideas, concepts, pillars, things we explored. They're written in brown. Ultimately, as a team, when we examined these, we recognized things like avoiding perfection in favor of excellence, focusing on excellence, not the shame that comes with perfection. Looking at vulnerability, failing forward, making sure that we hold each other accountable and have open conversations. In the end, this really represents the ideas that are represented in Brené Brown's Daring to Lead. And so we describe this as our Opus One Daring to Lead culture. At the end of the day, we ended up with the buckets that we saw, but also adding this Daring to Lead culture. In the end, the refinements that came from that second day took Great Place to Work, and we kept that as a mission that we've held since 2013. The ideas of sustainability became broader. It wasn't just about sustainability in the environment. It became a principle of global responsibility. And to make it actionable, we said we needed to be globally responsible. #1 wines in the world, we needed to go beyond that and say we wanted to be among the most respected wines in the world. Much like Mr. Mondavi said many years ago that he wanted his wines to stand among the finest wines in the world, we embraced that as Opus One and Overture standing in the company of the finest wines of the world. Ultimately, the ideas of partnership evolved more into this idea that if we work together, we can go further. The idea of this daring to lead culture that would make sure that we function harmoniously as a team, being vulnerable, willing to share ideas, willing to fail forward. And then lastly, we realized this, what I call the green matter. If you look down in the lower right-hand corner, you see these green words, visions, stewardship, the core of who we are. And I looked at that, and we all collectively looked at that and said, really, this is our why. Why are we doing this? We're not here just to make wine. We're here because we want to embrace the vision of Robert and the Baron, their vision for the good life, which was made up of wine, food, the arts, how they come together to create something greater than the individual parts. And we see our mission really fundamentally as sharing their story, their Napa Valley story, the story of Bordeaux, embodied in the story of Opus One. Once we share that story, it is our fundamental belief that then we have created ambassadors that will go around the world to share this story and vision of the Baron and Robert Mondavi. And it ultimately is our responsibility to serve as stewards for generations to come of that vision. This vision that we're putting before you is our vision for 2030, but we also understand it has to go much further than that.